Hello everyone, my name is James Gupta and I'm the founder and CEO of Synap. Synap is an online education platform based here in Leeds. We work with schools, tutoring companies and universities to deliver specifically online assessments in a way that's secure, robust and also really engaging and easy to use from a student's point of view. As part of this talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do and focus really on a case study that we have working with the University of Law over the last couple of years. The main themes of the talk is going to be essentially talking about how a startup and a much larger organisation can work together on the same project, and how if you structure that right, you can kind of get the best of both worlds. So you can get the kind of agility and speed that comes with being a small 15-person team, combined with the domain expertise, resources, and experience of a much larger organisation. So in our case, we were doing this to build new tools, new exciting ways for students to engage with their content, and particularly with this being accelerated during the pandemic, where ULaw, as well as a lot of other universities, were adapting very quickly to online-only and hybrid kind of teaching methods, and also delivering tools that were kind of best in class and really promoted student engagement, i.e. making a tool that students wanted to use so that they would come back to it often and actually improve their learning outcomes. So just a tiny little bit about us. So we're an online platform that specialises in delivery of engaging online assessments. This means that we cover the full spectrum of assessments, from day-to-day kind of mini quizzes that a student might want to take in their own time, just practicing on a phone, to kind of low and medium stakes assessments that might take place once a week in order to check up on a student's knowledge of a particular workshop or series of lectures, through to much higher stakes assessments which may be remotely monitored, where students are actually using this as a key part of their progression throughout the course. By putting all of this onto one platform, we can ensure that the students have a really joined up and cohesive experience from day one right till the end of the course. We make sure that the data is really joined up, so to make it easy for the institutions and for tutors, as well as students, to see correlations between things that they're studying in their own time on an app with how they're performing in workshops, with predictions as to how they should be scoring or what they should be aiming for in their final exam. Also helping to alert tutors and the university to students who might be at risk of failing. So when we first started working with the University of Law, it was because there was a new series of exams coming out called the Solicitor's Qualifying Examination. This represented a significant change in the way that the legal curriculum was being delivered, essentially moving everything to a nationally standardised multiple choice exam. So ULaw wanted to not just update, but to really quite radically rethink the way that some of their courses were delivered. So this meant moving a lot more of it online, creating tools that let students practice in their own time, and obviously with the advent of the better pandemic, ensuring that the course and the students could adapt flexibly to a hybrid, kind of like a part on campus, a part online, as well as an online-only delivery model. So we looked at what the actual learner journey was. So students come in and do an assessment piece before they start the course. They then practice, or are meant to practice, kind of daily. They do weekly topic tests, they do mock assessments, do coursework, and this all goes round in a cycle. So essentially they go from studying daily to assessments for learning weekly to mock assessments monthly, all helping to prepare them for an exam that takes place after 3 months. One of the things that initially kind of really struck us about this is just how similar it is to the kind of the lean startup build, measure, learn model. So a lot of you will be familiar with this, but for people who've not come across it yet, there's a concept in kind of agile development that a lot, if not most, kind of startups will follow. And the idea is basically you're building something new and something unknown. So you don't necessarily know what the final product's going to look like. You want to get it out and get feedback and be able to adapt really responsively to what, in our case, the students and the tutors are telling you. So instead of trying to build a plan all up front and then trying to hit deadlines along the way, what you want to do is create the minimum viable product, the smallest, simplest version of your idea that actually starts delivering value to your end users. And then you want to iterate on it as rapidly as possible. So you want to build new things, measure how people are using it, get feedback in from the people that are engaging with it, and then use those to generate more ideas so that you can improve the product. And that's essentially what the students are doing and what ULaw is doing, in that the students are using these daily and weekly tests to see where their areas of strength and weaknesses are, and then using that to then inform where they most need to be focusing next. And it's also what we've been doing as a startup in trying to improve our actual product experience and to encourage students to practice more frequently. So there's quite a nice alignment there in terms of working in quite an agile way, both from a student's point of view, as well as from universities and as well as Synap. So we wanted to kind of like really harness that and take advantage of it. The proposed benefits of the project follow a similar cycle. At Synap, we've always really focused on engagement as like a core metric. We believe that if we make a product that is engaging, students use it more often. Through using it more often, their scores and their performance in tests, as well as their knowledge around the subject in general, will improve. And then, obviously, exam results and everything follows from that. So a key part for us has always been to make the experience fun. Multiple choice questions, kind of like closed answer questions in general, are really great for this because you can naturally do it really easily on a phone. You can provide objective, immediate, really detailed feedback. There's an inherent nature of gamification to it in terms of wanting to beat your score, wanting to make sure that your graphs are going up, trying to beat other people in terms of how many questions you're answering. And again, the fact that you can do this on a mobile as well as on a laptop means that you can practice whenever or wherever. We looked at a number of different ways of kind of like categorizing the content and realized quite early on that this was going to be really key to delivering value. So essentially, what we wanted to do was not just report on the fact that 10 students took this quiz with an average score of 68% or something like that. We wanted to treat each question that was answered on the platform as its own data point. So if you think about it, a multiple choice question, so a question with an A, B, C or D kind of like answer, on one hand might seem kind of quite simple, but because of its simplicity, it's also very objective. There are these little small binary data points that you can tap into, so we can see what students are answering across different campuses, across different parts of their course, from online to sort of like hybrid in different countries, in different cohorts from different tutors. We also know the topic and the subject, the difficulty and the skills being assessed as a part of that question. And it gives us a lot of flexibility in then how we structure these reports. So we know that we can show really interesting data, for example, on how a group of students or an individual student is improving over time. We also categorize their individual kind of like strengths, how many times they've seen a question and how consistently that student's able to answer it correctly. And a lot of other things kind of like this, using these questions answered as the main building blocks of it. So this is an example of one of a number of screens that we've developed for students. This kind of information is available to the students as soon as they complete an exam on our platform or on the mobile app. We include statistics there, such as their percentile, how they're doing compared to everybody else who's ever taken that exam, whether that's in their cohort, whether that's across all time. And because of the way that we've kind of set up the data and really focused on delivering something that students wanted to see, we're able to do this in a real-time format rather than sort of like, you know, weekly or monthly reports that might get emailed out to a student. They don't need to wait for their results. And then this is something that came out of sort of like focus group sessions with students that we didn't think of ourselves and wouldn't have necessarily sort of like thought to include, but I think it's like a really nice touch. So basically for each time a student answers a question on the platform and they get their feedback results, they want to see which questions they got right or wrong. We can show them not just what they got right or wrong that time, but then kind of like their recent history with that question. So you can see the sort of previous attempt here. We're showing the student that they got this question right, even though they'd answered it incorrect the last 2 times that they'd seen it. So that's obviously really good and encouraging. This one here is one that they've maybe sort of like regressed on and things like that. The reason I'm including this slide again is because it's not something that came out of our like internal kind of like focus groups. It's not something that was on the specification, and to be honest, it's just not something that we would have necessarily thought to include. But by going through this kind of like cycle and from engaging stakeholders, both the students as well as sort of like the sort of higher ups and department heads at the university, it's something that we were able to include pretty quickly into the process, and that kind of improvement's just ongoing like for us. So Just a couple of other examples, but I'll send anyone who's interested these slides after so you can look in your own time. By kind of like structuring the data in this way, we've also ensured that we can use it in various ways. So a key challenge for universities working in a kind of like a modern sort of like cloud environment is that they often have their data sat in various kinds of like silos, maybe like on-premise servers and things like that. We wanted to kind of like unlock this data so that ULaw could take advantage of best-in-class modern tools that a lot of people in this room will be familiar with, so things like Intercom and MailChimp, other things like that. So essentially we can set up really automated rules that keep a personalised touch. So here, for example, we're using some of the data that we've collected about a student to suggest to them that they might want to focus on this topic. This can be done sort of completely automatically in the background. It doesn't require tutor intervention or input. And it's essentially like a little bit of a pulse check to help keep students on the straight and narrow before escalating it to the point of like a manual tutor-led intervention. There's also some other sort of bits that we've done, but I'm just aware of time, so I'll just sort of say very quickly. Because, again, of the way that we've kind of like set this up, we can deliver these reports in different formats. So we wanted to show different ways of getting the same data out to tutors that met different use cases and requirements. And essentially, we're now working on this project. So we've got a team of people working on this sort of project. It's taught us a whole bunch of things about how we work with larger organisations in general, and like I said at the beginning of this talk, how you capture the best of both worlds, so keeping the agility of a startup with the expertise and the reputation and just the general kind of like knowledge and knowledge base that comes with working with a larger organisation. And it's something that can be done. It's taught us a whole bunch of things about how we structure our product now for sort of like smaller clients. It's taught us about, like I say, working directly with sort of stakeholders where we've got access to the students as well as to the tutors. Taught us about having to sort of consider the different needs of different people within the organisation, and hopefully it's taught our clients like a thing or two about what's out there and some of the new possibilities, new ways of working with the advent of like cloud technology, software as a service, and that kind of thing. So next steps for us, we're really excited about this project. It's still, in a sense, like in its early days. We're looking at then rolling out this method of working to other clients in different industries, whether that's academia, private sector, like for sort of like companies, or public sector. And we're just really seeing a lot of interest in what we do. We think that these trends have been going on for a while in terms of institutions moving learning to an online or hybrid sort of like model. And as you do that, continuous assessment, objective real-time feedback and data analytics becomes increasingly important and a competitive advantage, as well as something that really helps student engagement. So thanks very much for listening. I am around later in the day if anyone wants to ask any questions, and feel free to get in touch if you're interested to learn a bit more. Thank you.